Out here, the pace of life is dictated by the seasons, but a massive industrial footprint is quietly moving into the countryside. For the people who live nearby, the arrival of these facilities brings immediate, tangible costs. Residents see their water bills jump as local aquifers are tapped, electricity rates spike by 10%, and a constant 440 Hz hum settles over the landscape. The culprit is the first generation of modern digital infrastructure, the hyperscaler. These facilities process immense amounts of global data, and they require an equally immense volume of local resources to operate. Inside, millions of processors run simultaneously, generating extreme heat. To prevent the servers from melting, these facilities rely on brute force industrial air conditioning and towering structures that consume huge volumes of water. We often think of the cloud as an invisible network. On the ground, it is a heavy industrial presence that directly competes with its neighbors for power and water. Digital infrastructure began as small, localized computer rooms. Technicians operated early mainframes within government buildings and research labs, requiring only basic ventilation to maintain operational temperatures. As internet traffic exploded, those single rooms expanded into warehouse-sized operations. The sheer volume of servers required to host the web pushed early cooling methods to their physical limits. To reject the heat generated by thousands of densely packed servers, operators scaled up their plumbing, installing massive evaporative cooling towers on their roofs. These systems pump cold water through the building to absorb heat, then expose that hot water to the outside air. Millions of gallons of local municipal water are evaporated into the atmosphere just to keep the servers running. Moving the water isn't enough. Operators also deploy heavy mechanical fans to move air across condensers and server racks, creating a relentless industrial drone. Scaling this design creates a linear increase in water demand and noise pollution. In rural areas with limited aquifers or strict acoustic standards, the traditional hyperscale model simply runs out of room to grow. To survive the move into rural and suburban areas, data center engineering had to adapt. Instead of building monolithic warehouses, the industry developed specialized, highly efficient edge facilities. One radical shift is immersion cooling. Hardware components are submerged entirely in a thermally conductive dielectric fluid that absorbs heat much faster than air. Alternatively, facilities deploy direct-to-chip cooling. Sealed copper pipes run liquid directly to the microprocessors, targeting the hottest components. Because the fluid is in a closed loop, there are no evaporative water losses. This removes the need for rooftop cooling towers and high-velocity fans. By changing how heat is managed at the processor level, the facility stops draining municipal aquifers and silences the industrial drone. Because liquid cooling concentrates server heat into a piped fluid, the facility can export that thermal energy directly to its neighbors, a strategy known as sector coupling. Instead of venting 120-degree water into the sky, the hot fluid is diverted directly into nearby agricultural operations, providing a steady supply of heat to warm the soil and air. This infographic from Hive Digital illustrates how data center waste heat is recycled in Sweden. Through this central heat exchange hub, the data center provides the exact thermal load required for a greenhouse to cultivate fresh vegetables year-round, even just below the Arctic Circle. This table, titled Real-World U.S. Data Center Waste Heat Reuse Examples, shows that this model is actively expanding across America. Facilities in New York, Washington, and Wisconsin are already routing server heat to public housing, corporate campuses, and agricultural centers. This integration shifts the data center's role from a waste generator into a primary thermal engine for regional agriculture. Even if a facility solves its water and noise problems, rural towns still face the reality of electrical grid strain. Adding a heavy industrial load to a local substation often forces utilities to buy expensive peak energy, raising rates for everyone else. To secure their own uptime against these fluctuations, modern data centers install massive uninterruptible power supply systems and battery energy storage arrays. These high-capacity battery banks allow the data center to operate as a dynamic grid support. When local power demand spikes, the facility can stop pulling from the substation and start pushing power back into the municipal grid within milliseconds. The data center absorbs the volatility of the grid. By managing their own demand and releasing stored power during critical shortages, these facilities increase electrical resilience for the surrounding community. Digital infrastructure has fractured into two distinct models. The older, warehouse-scale operations rely on isolated consumption, while newer edge facilities integrate into their local environments. Instead of paving over farmland with cooling towers and exhaust fans, the modern edge facility quietly sits alongside agricultural operations, actively supporting the crops. For rural towns, the arrival of this specific type of infrastructure brings substantial economic leverage. Local governments gain millions in new commercial tax revenue, secure high-paying engineering jobs, and establish direct fiber connectivity for local businesses. But capturing these benefits requires local leaders to scrutinize the blueprints. A town must demand liquid cooling, closed-loop thermal systems, and grid-supporting battery arrays to ensure they are getting a symbiotic partner. The continued expansion of the internet will require physical space. By demanding modern engineering standards, rural communities can turn an industrial burden into a quiet, sustainable, and highly profitable coexistence.